us tonight for the first time. We are so thrilled to host all of you tonight, so thank you for joining us. Just a quick review of our agenda for this evening. The first 15 minutes will be project team introductions and then a brief recap of the findings coming out of our first workshop. Then we'll take about 5 minutes to introduce the design topics and drivers that will be the subject of our breakout discussions later tonight. The most consistent piece of feedback we got from our post-workshop surveys for workshop 1 was that there wasn't enough time in breakout rooms. So we are remedying that. We are giving you a whopping 50-minute for breakout rooms this time to give everyone more time for a really rich discussion there. And after that, we'll come back to this main room where our breakout facilitators will share out the results from their groups. And then we'll let you know about next steps, both for this community engagement project and the project at large. So at this time, we'd like to invite Patricia Algara from BASE to ask if anyone needs a breakout room where the presentation will be given by her in Spanish. If you require a Spanish breakout room, please indicate it in the chat.
Buenas noches. Si alguien en el grupo necesita tener la presentación en español y necesita que le otorguemos traducción, por favor pónganlo en el chat para poder mandarlos a un grupo especial que va a estar en español. Gracias.
Thank you, Patricia, and we'll keep an eye on the chat in case there are any requests for that. Moving right along, we'd love to establish a couple ground rules so we can do the best possible job of hearing everyone tonight. Everyone's already done a fantastic job of muting your microphone, which is great so that we can hear everyone without background noise. We also encourage you, when we do call for moments of feedback during our presentation, for you to use the raise your hand button, which we'll explain how to do when we get to that part in the presentation. Then once you've raised your hand, it's important to wait to be called on so that we can organize the input and hear everyone. You're also welcome at any time to use the chat function. I do have members of my team here monitoring the chat to help if you don't have a reactions button or see a way to raise your hand. They'll be here to record your written response. Most importantly, we invite all of you to share your experiences. We know you all have super relevant local knowledge that we don't have on the project team. So we ask you all to lend that knowledge to the design discussions we'll be having later on. And lastly, smile, have fun. We're all neighbors and community members here, so feel free to relax and openly share in this workshop. That's what we need tonight. So with that, let's move into today's objectives. We want to create design solutions together with you today. You don't need to be an architect or a designer to do this. Just honestly share which of the presented solutions resonate with you and feel right for this neighborhood. Another important component of tonight's activities is for us to consider as many of the potential stakeholders for this project as we can, and we'll get to that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. An important note here before we get too much further. Please note that tonight's topics will focus on building exterior and site only. If you have a connection to the IDD community and would like to join a separate focus group that will provide input on unit layouts and interiors, please email MitchellPark Apartments at edenhousing.org or email me directly at kate@ojkarch.com. Tonight will be, again, building exteriors and site only. We're going to keep the focus there. So for the first segment of our presentation, we'd like to introduce our team. The project developer, Eden Housing, along with the project architects, my team, OJK Architecture and Planning, and the project landscape architects, BASE Landscape Architecture, are here. We'll give each team the opportunity to introduce themselves to you in a moment. Tonight, we are also joined by representatives from the County of Santa Clara and from Supervisor Simidian's office. We welcome you and thank you for joining us as well. And because this project will include affordable housing with a focus on residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we would also like to welcome representatives or family members from the community of individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities who have graciously agreed to join us and hopefully share some of their lived experience with housing challenges and successes in their community tonight. So first, Kate Blessing Kawamura, our senior project developer from Eden Housing, will give a brief introduction to her organization.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm going to keep this brief so that for those who attended last workshop don't hear everything the same time. I think the salient points are Eden's mission is to create and sustain high quality, affordable housing communities that advance equity and opportunity for all. We got our start in 1968 with a group of volunteers who met at the local IHOP. No joke, they were all, they were few enough that they were able to pile in around one table. They started off really small with renovating 6 homes for 6 families. And now today, 53 years later, we have more than 11,000 homes for families and individuals across the Bay Area and the States. We are celebrating our 53rd birthday this year, and we pride ourselves on our properties looking just as good on their 53rd birthday as on their first. And we have not only a development team, which is what I'm a part of, but we also have property management and resident services in-house. So once we build this building that we're talking about today, I will hand it off to some of my colleagues, but they're involved in the development process too early on. And you also met a couple representatives from resident services and property management last meeting. Thanks, Kate. That's all for me.
Thank you, Kate. Next is our team. I'm Kate Conley, the principal and owner of OJK Architecture and Planning and the project architect for this development at 525 East Charleston Road. I'm joined tonight by several members of our firm who will be helping facilitate our workshop later this evening. Our practice has a 40-year legacy of designing beautiful multifamily affordable housing projects across Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, and Monterey counties. You see some of our projects pictured here on this slide, and I'd like to draw your attention in particular to 1585 Studios, which some of you may have seen driving down El Camino Real in Mountain View. This project in particular is our touchstone for the proposed development at 525 East Charleston, as it's similar in scale and is home to a similar target demographic of residents. A little bit about our firm. Our practice is 100% woman-owned and is focused on restoring and enhancing the communities where our buildings are situated. We believe that through thoughtful design, our studio creates living-centered environments that empower families and individuals, enhance their health and well-being, and elevate their quality of life. And next, I would like Base Landscape Architecture to introduce themselves to you.
Thank you, Kate. I am Patricia Algara. I am the founding principal of Base Landscape Architecture, and I will be the principal in charge of this project. We are also excited to be working on this project. We have collaborated with OJK Architects, also in the project in the 1585 Studios, and we are very committed to creating healthy habitat for all the users of the spaces that we design. We are also a woman-owned firm, and we're thrilled to be a part of this project and excited to participate and hear all of your ideas and see how we can create a wonderful landscape. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Patricia. For a full history of how this project came about, we invite you to head to YouTube and view the recordings for Community Workshop #1, and we can post those in the chat for you. In short, for those of you who may be new here tonight, the County of Santa Clara has owned the parcel of land at 525 East Charleston Road since 1957. The property has been leased to Gate Path Abilities United, which is now known as Ability Path, since 1979. Ability Path's lease with the county has a termination date of October 15th, 2022, so next year. And the property is then able to be redeveloped by the county upon expiration of that lease, which is part of the reason this site was selected for our project. And as a reminder of what we have planned so far for the site, Nicole, if you want to hop to the next slide, thanks. As part of Eden and OJK's project proposal, the project site is to be 100% affordable housing, with a focus on residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The project will comprise 50 to 55 units, as well as on-site services for the residents. Recall that the current occupant of this site is Ability Path, who already do amazing work serving individuals with developmental disabilities. And so really our goal with this project is to serve the same population already being served on this site, but in a more holistic and fundamental way by providing much needed housing. So we'd like to give a brief recap of what was covered in our first workshop for those of you who may not have been at the first workshop. Again, if you want to view that in full, we'll go ahead and post the YouTube links in the chat. Our first activity was creating a community map, tagging our favorite places, areas for improvement, and any ideas our participants had to make this corner of town even better than it already is. Next, we asked participants to take part in a visual preference survey where they ranked images of all different Silicon Valley-based architecture and landscape projects using the scale shown here. Next, this is a slide of the summary of the architectural images that we showed, and those images that received the most like it and love it votes were indicated here with a little yellow flag. Similarly for landscape, these are the 10 images we showed, and all the like it's and love it's have a tag here as well. We then separated into breakout rooms where we invited participants to share their feedback and concerns in smaller groups. All the responses were recorded on virtual sticky notes, which you see here. And later our team aggregated similar responses into different design topics. So I'll have Nicole click through fairly quickly so you can see the topics. The different colors just correspond to different breakout rooms. And as you'll see soon, these design topics will play a big role in tonight's workshop. So in order to be able to hear from as many of you as possible, we're going to have a quick warm-up activity to get our participation muscles working. In order to be able to hear you all, we have a couple options for you all to contribute feedback. Number one is that you can type your responses into the chat. That's always an option. And someone from our firm will be collecting your answers and posting them. Option two is to use the raise hand function in Zoom. And you might find this in one of two places, either by clicking on reactions with the smiley face at the bottom of your screen and then clicking raise hand. Or if you have a different version of Zoom, you may find it by clicking on participants and then raise hand will show as an option in the sidebar. We'll call on those of you with raised hands one by one. And when we call your name, please unmute yourself and give a brief response for our team to record. So the question we'd like for you all to respond to is, who are the stakeholders for this housing development? We invite you to think about this three ways: who is affected by the project, who has oversight of the project, or who has an interest in the project's successful completion. As an example, a person affected by this project might be a bike commuter who travels down Charleston Road every day. So we do ask you to keep your responses for the moment relevant to this topic. If you have other feedback at this time, we'd love for you to make a note of it and let us know about it in the smaller group when we divide into breakout rooms later on this evening. So we're now going to share our virtual whiteboard. Looks like Nicole's already all over it, and we'll begin calling on those with raised hands for approximately the next few minutes. And remember that if we don't get to you in time, we can always grab your response from the chat. So do we have any raised hands yet? Who are the stakeholders for this project? Or any thoughts in the chat? Thank you, Linnea. Number one, IDD people. Couldn't agree more. I think I would add to that also IDD service providers. Arthur, looks like you've got a contribution. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Residents of the community, residents nearby and residents across the street, and people traveling on bicycles down Charleston.
Excellent. Yeah, the neighbors and residents nearby. Love it.
And people going to Stevenson House, people going to the church next door, and people going to the school down the street.
Yeah, the schools are a great one. That's something that's come up a lot. We have several schools nearby, and we do know that this project is on safe routes to school. So thank you for that, Arthur. Anyone else who might have oversight over this project, for example? Yeah, Ada's Cafe. That's a great one, Linnea. Thank you. Sherry, go ahead.
Well, somebody that's going to be impacted are those that are coming out of the shopping center. That whole mess at Nelson and Middlefield and Charleston there is the exiting and entering of the project is going to be problematic. Also, bike riders there.
Yeah, definitely. Great points. Also the bike lane to Mitchell Park, that's a great one. We have the multi-use path immediately to the west of the site, southwest. Any other thoughts for stakeholders before we move on? Great. Okay, well, this is a fantastic brainstorm. Thank you everyone for helping us out with those responses. If you think of anyone else, of course, feel free to add it to the chat and my team can grab it and add it to the Miro board. Pardon me. So now we would invite you, some of you have already started to do so in the chat also, to tell us which type of stakeholder group you feel identifies you the best, just so we can get a sense of who's joining us here tonight. So go ahead and do that at this time while we move on. Again, this is how you add things to the chat. Thanks, Nicole. All right. So for the main focus of tonight's discussion, we'd like to present the 8 design topics that we'll be discussing tonight. The 8 design topics are listed here and are based on that input, all of those stickies that we received at our first community workshop. So for each topic, our designers have created a toolkit or potential design solutions to address the suggestions and feedback that we heard from our participants. And we'll share some sample images from each of these toolkits to sort of further illustrate what we mean by that. So for bike traffic and safety, we'll be looking at solutions to create safe interactions between bikes and cars along Charleston and along that multi-use path to the west of our site. With the understanding, of course, that our site is located on multiple routes to schools. Then in vehicular and traffic and parking, we'll explore vehicular traffic patterns into and out of the site and considerations for quality and quantity of parking spaces on the site as well. Street trees and site trees will explore different ways of adding trees to the site and streetscape, which was important to many of our participants last time. And for gardening on site, we will look at the winners of the Landscape Visual Preference Survey and our favorite design solutions to incorporate green spaces on site, while of course considering universal access for residents of varying ability levels. Then in building aesthetics, we'll revisit the winners of the Architectural Visual Preference Survey from Workshop 1, as well as some great new suggestions that our participants actually gave us, proposed for the look and feel of the building exterior. In building height and massing, it'll be more of a focus on the building size and different ways that its mass can be configured on that site. Then in neighbor privacy, that toolkit will focus on solutions to concerns about views from the building to neighboring properties. And for resident safety, finally, we will explore all the suggestions we heard to make our future residents feel safe, from fencing and landscaping to site lighting and access control, and then expand the discussion into the best placement for public and private spaces on site. There are also a few rules that we have to play by as a design team, and we're calling those design drivers. The city of Palo Alto, of course, has a municipal code that dictates things like overall building height and setback, which is the distance from the sidewalk to the building along Charleston Road. And additionally, the draft objective standard for the city of Palo Alto has requirements for things like minimum amount of outdoor space, while one of the California state funding sources for the project has requirements for minimum amount of common space in the building. We do plan to exceed both those outdoor space and common space requirements by quite a bit in this project, but just so you know, those are the minimums. And now we'll move on to our explanation of the main workshop portion for this evening. So in a few minutes, you'll all be divided into 4 breakout rooms. Each room will be hosted by 2 designers, one from OJK Architecture and Planning and one from Base Landscape Architecture, who will guide you through the whole 50 minutes. You'll notice that each breakout room has been assigned 4 topics. We've done this intentionally so that any one of you gets a 50-50 chance of discussing any topic, but also so that your group can weigh the pros and cons of different design solutions, while keeping an eye on the fact that a pro for one problem might be a con for a different one. To give you an example, a facade with very few windows along Charleston might be a plus for neighbor privacy, but it might look a bit like a fortress and be a minus for building aesthetics. And so it's really this type of at-large thinking that we'd like to promote as each group works through your design topics. Before we break out, though, we'd like to get a little bit deeper dive into how the breakout rooms are organized and run through a few details with you as well. I saw a question in the chat about what does massing mean? Here it is. Massing is a term used in architecture that refers to the perception of the general shape and form of a building. The 4 topics that will be discussed in that massing group are listed below. Next is the circulation group, group 2. Circulation is a term that refers to the different ways people move through space across the site. And again, design topics for this group listed below. That'll be common across all the slides. Group 3 is the envelope group. A building envelope is defined as the separation of the interior and exterior of the building. And that includes windows, doors, roof, exterior walls, even the slab, everything that separates inside from out. And then finally, group 4 is the landscape group. Landscape architecture is the design of outdoor areas, landmarks, and structures to achieve environmental, socio-behavioral, or aesthetic goals. And so the breakout room should happen automatically, but if it doesn't, we just ask for your patience while we assign you to a room as quickly as we can. And then once you're in your breakout rooms, we'll just remind you to either enter your comments in the chat. I think you can go to the next slide, Nicole. Enter your comments in the chat or use the raise hand tool to submit your question or comment to the team in that room. I'm seeing a question about how many housing units. It'll be 50 to 55 units. Keep in mind that the leaders of each room will give you a little introduction to the topics that your room will be discussing, and the people in that room will introduce themselves before they start taking your comments as well. We do encourage you to stay in the room where you're assigned, since each room will have the opportunity to discuss half of the design topics here tonight. However, if you have a burning issue, like bike safety is your jam, and you get put in a room that doesn't have bike safety on the agenda, you will be able to leave your room. I think if you click to the next slide, Nicole, it'll show, yeah. You will be able to leave your room by clicking the leave room button. This should bring you back to the main room where I can help reassign you. And I'll also be kind of floating periodically from room to room to check on progress. So if I'm not there right when you return back to the main room, just hang tight. I'll be there soon and I'll help you get to another room. Also, just a note, it is okay if you don't make it through all of your groups for design topics. We've organized the order of the topics so that each group, if they only get to their first 2, all of the topics will get discussed. That being said, I'll send broadcasts to all the rooms when it's time to switch to each new topic, in case you have some thoughts to share about that 4th topic at the bottom on your group's list. So hopefully you get to all 4, but not a situation for panic. So a reminder of today's objectives. Number 1 is to work together to discuss the best combination of design solutions for your design topics. And number 2 is to consider all of the stakeholders in that big, beautiful list of purple stickies that we brainstormed together at the top of the hour as you consider the different possible design solutions. We ask you to step outside yourself and your own experience to look at each design solution from a community-wide perspective. Remember, empathy is the name of the game here, and we want to create compassionate responses that take into account all of our stakeholders. And lastly, in case you missed it at the beginning, again, tonight we'll only be focusing on building exterior and site. If you have a connection to the IDD community and want to talk interiors, email the MitchellPark Apartments email address or my personal email at the bottom there, and we will get you in touch with a focus group that's focused specifically on interiors for this population. So I'm going to go ahead and start the breakout rooms. I'm going to open all rooms and start assigning people. Okay, looks like we've got a couple of folks left in the main room here. Go ahead and click join. It should let you join your breakout room. Nothing's going to be happening in this main room for quite a while. Hi, Diane. Which room would you like to go to?
I'd like to go to room 1.
Room 1, you got it.
Group 1.
Okay, it should give you an option to click join. And Linnea, if you're there,
Group 2.
group 2. Okay. Got it. Should give you an option to click join. Hey, Kate, did it kick you out?
This is me, Susie. Let me change.
Oh, Susie. How funny.
Hi.
Hi, Andrew. Did you want to go to a different room?
Yes, room 3, please, for privacy.
Room 3. You got it. Should give you an
Okay.
option to join. And Sherry, did you want to go to a different room?
Room 1.
Room 1. All right. Let me get you over there. Great. Okay. Should give you an option to join. And Susie,
I think 3 is where.
okay. I will move you there now.
Thank you.
Move to group 3. All right. See you later.
Does it just put me in?
Should give you an option to join.
One question has to do with whether it makes sense to consolidate driveways, because the number of driveways is 1 plus 1. There's a driveway and there's a separated pathway to the park. So I'm not sure what consolidating driveways means in this model.
Oh, are you asking a question about the first image, Arthur?
Yes, it doesn't make sense for this particular property because this property can't be consolidated with another property's access.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that image, Amy? Do you know what that is representing there?
I can speak to it if you want to, if I could jump in. Hi, everyone. So one of the things that we heard, I think it was Arthur, is that there's right now kind of a confusing inlet and outlet into the multi-use path, because the former ability path out driveway is actually like blocked off with a donation box, and cars occasionally end up going down the multi-use path. So really just clarifying and, consolidating the ingress and egress on our site into one driveway potentially.
That's absolutely necessary, because IDD people, every driveway is an opportunity to get run over. They're not able to be as careful as neurotypicals, and a lot of neurotypicals are getting run down these days because they're on their phone or texting. And IDD people, it's much worse.
It's a great point.
So every driveway is an opportunity to get hurt.
Are you suggesting that the driveways be consolidated or that they be separated?
Consolidated.
So I can't have the driveway for the cars has to be separate from the driveway for the bicycles.
Oh, sorry. I lost track. I was thinking cars because that's what's in the picture.
But it has to be a separate driveway for bicycles.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
You have a driveway there now for bicycles, and you don't want cars driving on it.
That's good. You don't want bicycles and cars on the same driveway. You're right,
Right.
Arthur.
That's a great safety point.
So therefore, bicycles should see the car driveway should be separated out, and the bicycle driveway should have a bollard in its front of it, and the bicycle driveway can go into the property further in.
Right.
Fascinating idea. Yeah, I love
So
that.
therefore, people don't have to do it from the street; they can do it from the driveway, from further in.
Yeah, that's a great call. One way that I know bike and car traffic are separate
image in A, what we have is a row of jacaranda trees, which bring a really vibrant color to the space, just with the color when it's in bloom. B is pocket parks, right? So looking at like, can we create little spaces within the space at the sidewalk to gather. And then looking at trees to highlight the entryways, looking at perpendicular trees to the street and pathways, and trees alternating within the spaces. So, you know, we have an alley type of thing, or trees on both sides of the property. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on this and how you would like to see this place look like.
Well, okay, I'll jump in again. First of all, the city is named after a tree, so it's certainly appropriate to have lots of trees. My feeling is that, you know, many structures go up in Palo Alto with a few stick trees, you know, in front of them that will never grow to provide any real shade for the residents or shielding for those around them. So it'd be really great if you could, you know, envision something that is quite different than that. And, you know, I don't know if you've thought about the view from the park, how that matters, but I'd like to add, I have near me the Magic Forest, which is a beautiful stand of redwoods. And, you know, it might be nice to think about something like that. I appreciate redwoods need lots of water nowadays, but so yeah, I think that it would be really great if like the visuals that you show of the buildings could include the trees that would, you know, screen, and maybe by year, you know, like after year 10, this is what we'll see. In year 20, this is what we'll see.
Definitely, yeah, because it would change a lot, right? Like from the time that the trees are installed to the full maturity.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally love jacarandas, but they don't get that. They're not going to shield a 50-foot high building.
Right, their height is more like about 25, 30 feet at maturity.
And I would add that the only residence that seems to me is adjacent to the property is the one that's directly across the street. And therefore, having trees along Charleston would provide some screening. Plus, that's the direction the prominent sunshine comes from. So not only trees there, but I think you'd want to have your planters there as well, because if you had the planters on the side of the building that's away from Charleston, it would get almost no sunshine.
Yeah, solar access is a great point. It's like you guys are moving along great, so I'm gonna hop out, but thanks for letting me creep.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah. Yeah.
And then ingress comes to this side, and then there's a paratransit drop-off loop that can only turn right instead of crossing across the road. Any reactions to this option?
So either on this option, it would only be turning right out.
It could be something like that. It would be really hard for, oh wait, that's a left turn, staying in this lane. Instead of turning across to cut across and drive towards the shopping center, it would only be, we could propose turning just one way.
I mean, I think that's something that you guys should probably be getting feedback from our transportation division on.
Yeah.
In terms of like what's better for traffic flow.
Mm-hmm.
That area. When you say that's a paratransit drop off, would you mean that no, all cars would go out that way though, right? Or no?
Most like it could be either way.
Like, okay.
It could be cars come out similar to option A and only paratransit.
Looks like Sherry and Patty have raised hands as well.
Yes. Can we hear from Patty? Yeah.
I was thinking that, for example, in Hoover, which is the school next down the street, they have certain no right turns or no left turns. I mean, they have some signs that say only during school times or certain hours where you could only, and that could be a compromise when there's no school time or church events or gun times, you know, because a lot of gun students ride their bikes that way too. Just having a sign during those times when traffic is really bad on Charleston.
That's a great idea.
Well, except again, you have to contend with the shopping center turning traffic. And, you know, so I'm not sure that just limiting it to school hours would solve that problem.
I'm just concerned about political.
That's why we really like.
I'm more concerned about the political ramifications of this and the neighbors. And I think that part of the reasons why Maybell didn't work is because a lot of families were worried about the kids riding their bikes to school. And that's why they voted against it, which I think that if we have a compromise for people, I think it just would help. That's all I'm saying, is if we know the patterns and we have that for the neighborhood.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You know, just make it a full-time, you know, only right turn, or I mean, not just during school hours, but make it, you know, all during the day, you know, for bicyclists, so they don't have to remember if it's school hours or not. So we do need a traffic study on that.
Right, traffic studies.
Somebody
sounds like, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about some of the parking lot treatments that we're showing here, either the permeable pavers or planted trees, solar covers? Do any of those resonate with you all for this neighborhood? Sorry to jump in, Nicole.
No, that's okay.
I like the solar covers, you know, as well as trees.
Yeah, Kay, I was indicating to them that we do have requirements for trees cover for at-grade parking. So, and we don't allow solar panels as a replacement to that.
Okay. Oh, I've got to hop out, but the team will report the comments. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Just be aware.
Hi, Heidi. Did you want to move to a different room? Heidi, you're muted.
Yes, there. I think I'm unmuted now,
You
right?
are. Yeah, were you in a breakout room and wanting to be assigned to a different one?
No, I unfortunately just signed in. I completely forgot and then was like, oh my
okay.
God.
Well, we are all in breakout rooms right now. If you're wondering why it's just a little old me by myself. We have 4 options for you to choose from. There's one about building mass and size, one about circulation on the site of bikes and cars, one about the building envelope and aesthetics, and one about like landscape and green areas. Do any of those sound intriguing to you? You're on mute if you're responding.
Third building shape is a U shape that does provide sort of a courtyard entry from Charleston. And the fourth building shape is in sort of a townhouse style with more texture on the facade. The roofline could be modified, but it's showing flat because it will need to accommodate utilities for proper functioning of the building. But it's sort of the facade is a little bit segmented. Are there any thoughts on what you think would be best for the neighborhood?
My preference would be B. I think I got that right. The logo label is underneath. Yep.
Yes.
Except for my opinion would be to make the, maybe the L be flipped over so that it's further towards the rear property line, not towards the front property line. Not higher in the front, but low in the front, high in the back. But the long part of the L, it's hard to describe. Maybe in the back. But either way, I like B. Is there a D that's not shown currently? No, okay, I see it.
Everyone, I do need to head out to the main room, but I heard that there was a comment about the Eigler guidelines. Our team has downloaded those and are studying them extensively as part of our research for building aesthetic. We love the mid-century style, vertical paneling, the clerestory windows, exposed eaves, all of it. So certainly something we can consider moving forward. But I'm going to hop into the main room to help some folks who want.
Excellent. By the way, I'm willing to give you a piece of Eichler siding that I made myself as a sample. Come on by.
Send it my way. Thanks, Andrew. Good to see you. Hi, Yahira and Kelsey. Do you all need to be assigned to breakout rooms?
Yes, please. I got kicked out through my internet.
Oh no, Yahira, which room should I put you in?
I was in room 3.
3. Okay, I'll put you back there.
Thank you.
And Kelsey, where can I put you? I'm gonna pop you in landscape, but feel free to come back out if you have a different idea.
Sorry, I just.
Oh, you can decline that.
So what are the options? Sorry, I heard the beginning of the breakout rooms and then I had to drop off.
Oh, okay. So
So
we're in the end of it. There's massing, which is like building size shape, circulation, which is like bikes, cars moving around the site, envelope, which is like building aesthetics, and then landscape, which is green spaces, street trees, etc.
how about envelope?
Envelope. Okay, you got it. I will do envelope. All right, you should get the option to join now. All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the main room. I can't wait to hear the outcome of everyone's discussions. So we'll give Nicole a moment to share her screen. Great, thanks, Nicole. So we're gonna have our facilitators share their findings, and I think, Nicole, you're the first room, so go ahead. This looks great.
I am. So I was in the massing room and we had some great discussions, learned a lot about what we liked and also things that we did not like, which is just as useful. So for building height and massing, there was a favor for the 3-story masses. The C-shaped building seemed the most favorable, but the other 2 volumes that had a 3-story frontage around Charleston, also there was no opposition towards those 2, but there was definitely opposition to 4 stories along Charleston. For vehicular traffic and parking, of course, we need to do a traffic study, but some of the comments were related to covered parking. And so having PV panels or trees above, the city of Palo Alto has a tree requirement for surface parking lots. And then also having a paratransit drop-off loop and encouraging public transportation as much as possible to reduce the actual traffic coming in and out of the site. Then for gardening on site, we had the most consensus in this room. So reducing water use as much as possible, having food producing landscapes, and partnering with the local organizations such as Ada's Cafe and the church. And then for building aesthetics, there was a strong favor for fitting in with the neighborhood, using the Eichler design style, having things such as the strong roof lines, and also how the neighborhood and the city would favor designs that kind of keep with that style. Off to circulation.
And that'll be Amy, I believe.
Yeah, I was just trying to copy and paste a few things over, but I can go ahead and start talking about them. So for the bike traffic and safety, there was a good point about keeping the multi-purpose bike path separate from vehicular traffic and parking. To close that off, but they really liked the idea of planters and the painting of bike lanes. For resident safety, there was a combination of the key fobs, the buzzer entries, and the enclosed stairways, exterior stairs. And for the privacy fencing, there was a lot of discussion on like using a tall of the fence that we can use, and a green fence. And for the vehicular traffic and parking, we had a few conversations about a combination of these 2 options, but only having one driveway into the parking lot. And we did not get to the street trees and site trees.
Great. I know that
That's
the
okay.
landscape group did, so you're good. All right, Sharka, I believe, is our building envelope presenter.
Oh, yes, thank you. And thank you everybody for your opinions and helping us sort through this. Thank you, Victoria, for great note taking. So for building aesthetic, very strong preference for the mid-century Eichler, preference to adhere to the traditional way the mid-century buildings were designed. So for example, staying away from stucco. For neighbor privacy, we had several opinions voiced for facing windows away from the busy streets, and specifically, obviously from Charleston. People liked sort of the idea of being able to look outside into more open and greener space from the street, and also that in terms of synergies that would help with the neighbor privacy. For the single home residences, very very strong preference for clear story windows. And we did not have any takes on the imagery. None of those were suitable for participants in our group. Moving on to building height and massing, I believe that the strongest opinion voiced was for the U-shaped building. However, our participants would like to see it flipped so that the entry and the courtyard faces away from the street. So again, into the green open spaces or sort of more open spaces. And also we did have an opinion about the L-shaped building, also sort of flipped.
Oh, interesting.
And finally, for safety, we mostly really talked about safety for the residents of the building, and particularly safety from vehicular traffic. So separation of traffic is going to be very important. Safety on crosswalks, but also ensuring that there's safety from bicycles from the neighborhood, from the schools when kids are biking to and fro to their schools. There could be dozens of bicycles at a time, and so prevention from their entering into the site seems very important.
Got it. Great, thank you, Shrika. And the envelope group, or sorry, landscape. That's Patricia, I believe.
Yes, thanks, Kate. And thanks to all our participants. We had some great thoughts and comments. So on the gardening on site, our participants thought that it was important to have concrete paths for accessibility because it is easier when pushing a wheelchair to do so on concrete versus doing it on gravel or other materials. They also thought it was important to have drought-tolerant plants and to have the gardens located on the sun side, which is the Charleston side of the street, so that they can have enough sunshine to grow the garden and the food, etc. It could also be a buffer for the neighbors, which that came up a lot in the next topic. So street trees and side trees was a really great synergy with the neighborhood privacy, because the participants in our group really liked the idea of having tall trees to provide privacy, to provide shade, to provide, it's also, in a way, you have the sunshine, which is needed for the garden, but it also is going to make the building really hot. So if your window is facing Charleston, it would be nice to have a big tree to shade those rooms. They like the idea of the pocket park along the street, and maybe creating something like that just to improve, some amenities. Making sure that you have the right tree that's going to grow big so that it could screen the building. And the neighborhood privacy, which I've talked a lot about already because they were very synergistically, trees also need to be tall enough to shield even on the upper floors, so making sure that we get tall trees and not as much as the image of jacarandas was great, they want something that's going to be taller. And enable the building to blend more into the surrounding, especially over time. maybe using also some screen that can have vegetation growing on it. And then for the issue of bike traffic and safety, we had a biker in our group, which was really great because he gave us good feedback. And he said that there isn't that much biking that goes along on Charleston Street. It's mostly on Nelson Street. And Nelson already has a really great bike lane with streetlights for bikers. And that has made it a lot safer for bikers. He did not think that the property needs to have that much bike infrastructure improvements because it's really working really well. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for those incredible insights. You've certainly given the design team lots to think about moving forward. So I think we can skip this slide and the next, Nicole, since we just did that piece. Excellent. So just as a brief reminder for you all, or this might be new information if you're joining us for the first time, just where we are in the community outreach process right now. So the project has been awarded to our team, and last month we held the first community workshop, which was really focused on learning about the neighborhood from you, the community members. And tonight was the second workshop, focused on co-creating our vision for this property with an eye toward design solutions together. And then the third workshop will take place after our team has had some time to really get in there and design, so that we can share that proposed design back to you all and highlight the design moves that we make based directly on your feedback tonight. Then after that, the project team will proceed with the rest of the design process, and that'll then move into construction and leasing up. So as an immediate next step, go ahead and look out for a follow-up email that will have a post-workshop survey for you to give us some feedback on the activities for tonight. We'll also send out links to the YouTube recordings of the meeting tonight if you'd like to review anything. Also, you are welcome to visit the EdenHousing.org website. There is a dedicated page for the MitchellPark Apartments there. That gives you a place to sign up for a project interest mailing list if you want to be kept abreast of all of the developments of this project as it moves along. As always, feel free to email us at MitchellParkApartments@EdenHousing.org. And additionally, keep an eye out for an email invitation to our next community meeting, where we'll be presenting that design out to you.
And I'm just going to go through, if I could actually see my tab, and just show you how to get to the project page if you would like to navigate there. So it's edenhousing.org. Then you can go to the search bar and simply type in Mitchell Park, and the project will come right up. So we have our community meeting flyers, our recaps, all information and signups are on this page.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole.
Of course.
Bob is asking if we would hazard a guess about the date for the next meeting. Put me on the spot, Bob. I'd say we're aiming to close out the community engagement process late August, early September. So, but don't hold me to that. So lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for your participation in this workshop. The entire project team is so grateful for all of your interest and enthusiasm in this project. Just seeing how active the chat's been and all of the incredible insights that you all came up with in your workshops. I think we need to hire a couple of you. So thank you all, and we will see you next time. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Kate and all.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.